Okay, this is just going to be a brief few minutes going over memory, how long-term memories are formed, and best study techniques. First of all, when I think of this course, I keep one thing in mind, and that is that all new learning is built upon a foundation of prior knowledge. And kind of a corollary that goes with that, I think, is you don't really know something unless you can easily retrieve it when you need it. So what I see this course as being is kind of like us shoring up our foundation of knowledge in the first place and make that foundation easily retrievable, like for the boards and during clinical practice, and easily retrievable as we learn new information going on forward. So how do we do that? Well, we know a lot more now than we did just a few years ago about how memories are formed, how we can make more memories more durable and more easily retrievable. I'm going to go over kind of like two overlapping areas. One is how the brain develops long-term memories, and the other one is best study techniques. Now, first, I want to go through a little list of things we typically tell our kids, the way we've studied, the way we think are the best practices for study. And you've probably heard these, and you may know that they all aren't, best study techniques anymore. But you say, study in a quiet area, free of all distractions, study in the same place every day, study one topic at a time, reread that topic until you learn it, circle, highlight, underline that topic over and over again until you know it. Memorize as many mnemonics as you can. And there's a big tendency to adapt all your studying into the form that is your preferred studying style. And there's various systems out there. A real common one is the visual, audio, verbal, and kinesthetic styles. So an exhaustive amount of research has been done over the past 70 years where they test empirically one method against another, tweak it a little bit, test again, tweak it a little bit, test again. And it's resulted in some pretty surprising results. And a lot of these results are not intuitively obvious as to what method works better to learn information and to learn it durably. So they're not the way we've been taught as kids. They're not the way most educators teach kids nowadays. And in fact, all those things that I mentioned have been disproven as being good study techniques. Going over what we currently know about memories. There's kind of all the memories that we think of as being our memories are one of two kinds. They're memories of events, or they're factual memories. The memories of events are called episodic memories. Memories of facts are called semantic memories. Episodic memories are you remember an event, it gets encoded, it gets sent to the areas of the cortex where it's going to eventually form a long-term memory. And with this mapping is a whole contextual framework of the who, the why, the where, the how, your perceptions of the event, your sensory input at the event, and your emotions attached with the event. And and you can see that. You can remember certain times where the way you felt at a certain event. The thing about this sort of memory is that what makes it stronger are a few things. The more the emotion is, the stronger the memory. The more important your perception of the event, the stronger the memory. And how fresh it is, how fresh and different from your other normal sensory input the event is. The other thing to know about this is that all semantic memory, all factual memory is a derivative of episodic memory. You don't remember facts because they're facts. You remember events. From those events, you have little crystallizations of facts that appear over and over again. And those form the little nodules of semantic memory that then become more and more accessible. So it's laying down these episodic memory that you eventually develop more and more factual memory. So how the memory is formed. You go to an event, you're remembering this event. It gets processed through the hippocampus and called encoded. And it gets encoded and sent to different parts of the cortex, where over the next hours to days, it goes through a consolidation period, during which there's an actual structural change to the cortex and your long-term memories are formed. This is an utterly automatic process. Once you've endured the event, the entire process of forming long-term memory is automatic. You can dislodge it somehow by not getting enough sleep, having too much stress, drinking too much, stuff like that. But in general, it's utterly automatic and you don't need to do anything with it. Later on, when you recall that same information, your brain goes through pretty much exactly the same process. You recall that information, you retrieve it from your memory, and then more information gets attached to it. It gets re-encoded, re-consolidated, and it forms a deeper, more durable memory with better definition than it had before. So it's this process, and it turns out that it's this retrieval process that actually is the entire secret to forming long, durable memories. Let me go back to that list I was talking about earlier. So we say, study in a quiet, bland area, free from distractions. We've actually found out that that's not true at all. You can study in areas, you can't have too many distractions. You can't be watching a movie while you're studying. You can't be trying to multitask. Actually, multitasking has been found to be incredibly detrimental to studying. You can't get any depth in your studying, and multitaskers have test after test after test show that they don't have as deep of a knowledge base from studying than other people do. Remember that these memories are contextually mapped, so whatever new, fresh stuff is going on, it's kind of mapped along with the information in the memory. And so it's theorized basically that that the reason why studying in different areas all the time actually improves your memory of the events and of the facts is probably because the extra sensory input and stuff is making it a more richer, more robust memory. Study one topic at a time. This is really funny. It's utterly intuitively non-obvious that it actually works better if you study more than one topic at a time, and you interleave the topics. If you study, say, 3 topics, and you spend 10 minutes on each one, bouncing back and forth, you will actually learn the material better than if you study one thoroughly. So studying a topic, reading, rereading until you know it, doesn't work near as well. And it's thought that some of that is probably because you're doing a whole lot. Okay, one thing is that you're coming back to the topic, you're a little bit fresher, it's seeming new again, it's you've just been somewhere else, and there's a little bit more of that newness feeling to it. The other thing is that you're doing comparing and contrasting more as you go from one area to another, back to another area. And it's this comparing and contrasting is really a component of active learning, where you're doing much more than just passively intaking information. Let's see, read and reread the material. Nope, that doesn't work. You can read it once, and that's all you need. It's actually this retrieval process that is the key. And you do that mostly through self-testing. Questions and answers are like the absolute perfect study method. Think about the questions. It's like you have a question, it's about a topic that people need to know. Okay, well there, you're already at a topic people need to know. They put a scenario there, they ask a question. Usually in the answers, they have the correct answer, and then they'll have a main distractor and a few other distractors that are kind of logically consistent, but aren't the right answer. So they're pointing out, okay, this is the right answer. As you work through the question, if you get it wrong, the first time, that's actually great. Anytime you get something wrong, your brain gets stimulated to actually find the right answer. And so you'll read the right answer, you'll read, people often will go to a question, they'll say, I keep getting down to 2 answers, so I never can quite get it. Well, if you have that feeling, it means you honestly don't know the material well enough, period. So what question and answers are very good about is going through, telling you what the right answer is. The explanation should tell you why the incorrect answers are wrong, and you shouldn't leave that question until you actually understand why the right answer is right, why each of the incorrect answers are wrong. As you know, the next question could be a question about one of those incorrect answers this time. So they're really perfect. We also recommend what you do is called memories do fade with time. So you have to do spaced repetition of the same material. And each time you do this spaced retrieval, they call it space practice, space retrieval practice, space recall, you bring the information out, you re-encode, reconsolidate it, it becomes a more durable memory. So if you do that 1 to 2 days afterwards, you see it, after you read through the material, that's good. You do it another, 7 to 10 days later, 1 to 2 months later, 4 to 6 months later. But you can go longer each time because each time you remember it, it's more durable and easier to recall. So eventually it becomes part of just what you know. And that's where you want to get. Let's see. Memorize as many mnemonics as you can. Mnemonics are actually a very poor way to remember anything. They're very contextually poor. They're just a list, and it's really hard to memorize a list without making up a story to go with it. People often will remember the mnemonics and kind of forget what disease they go with. So it's much better to, if you do have a mnemonic, that you're actually using it not as a primary reference for what to remember for something, but actually understand the pathophysiology of, say, metabolic acidosis, understand everything you can behind it, and use the mnemonic as basically a little memory trick to help you just get all the little pieces in there, but not as a primary source for studying. Now, I know Dr. Claudius was doing a lot of the mnemonics for the emergency medicine, and I asked her if I said, do you use mnemonics when you do your practice? She says, oh no, not at all. It's just it's really for the test. So it does come down to that sometimes, where if you just want to get certain mnemonics before a test, that works. Adapt as much of your studying to your study style as possible. That's something else that study styles or your preference for study is fine for the initial read-through, but after that, more than one read-through of any material has been proven absolutely to not improve your grades on anything. By going through the material over and over again, you get this illusion of mastery. They actually have a term for it. It's an illusion of fluency or mastery that you actually understand this. And what you are seeing is just that, oh, this looks familiar to me. After you read it a few times, you're going to go, oh, I know this. But you don't at all. The way you learn it is by doing question and answers, hitting these topics from different points of view, and making you actually remember, recall, retrieve from your own mind, all the information you need for that. The other thing about question and answers is, of course, that they're board, in our Q&A product, they're board relevant and they're board related, board type questions and answers. So it also gives you a feel for how the boards work. When you're going through your material the first time, it's so important not to just be a passive acceptor of the information. So they say active learning is important. That's where you're writing notes, you're making little flashcards, you're make concept maps. Concept maps are great, but the thing about them, you have to make them yourself. If you try and use someone else's concept map or one online, it doesn't work. unless you actually you can use it as a inspiration or something, but make your own from it. Because all the creative process, the more your own creative process goes into a concept map, the much more durable that memory will be. Yeah, reflection and pondering. This is very much what you do normally in a clinic. Your regular practice is that you see patients during the day, you kind of think about them at night, you go, oh, I could have done that, oh, maybe I should have done that. That's very much retrieving information, putting new information, attaching new information to it. Maybe you look something up, it gets reconsolidated. This is what we're doing now is kind of like an artificial process of what we naturally do as we become better and better doctors, just working our job. Okay, so while you're here, keep doing the preview if you can. Preview, just looking at the questions coming up. Don't look at the answers. Don't try and figure them out or anything. Just see what pops into your mind. Really spend a little bit of effort on retrieving the information. There's actually, the harder you try to retrieve information, the much better the new information goes in. So there's kind of like, they have a term for it, like sufficient effort or something. But the harder you work at retrieving, and it's kind of like a muscle. We are so used to just going to UpToDate or someplace and just getting the information, doing this, not really remembering it at all, that this is a different process, and you work it like a muscle, it gets strong like a muscle. So, and then a couple of days after the talk, try and review it. You can look at the Q&As, you can look at what you've underlined, and just make sure it makes sense. And then as you go home, you can start doing question and answers on those. There's questions in the syllabus, there's review questions in the core if you use that, and there's the online Q&As, and you can use other ones too. The one thing I do recommend is that you don't spread yourself too thin. That's a very easy thing to do, is think that you need to use all the question and answer products out there. You don't really. People do very well on the exam using our Q&As, but you can use the prep Q&As too. But what you need to do is don't use the question and answer products as like an assessment. Assessment's fine before you're studying a topic. Self-assessment to see where you're weak, what you know, what you don't know. That helps you get ready for the topic. And that's kind of like what the preview is doing for you. But using question and answers just to see if you're ready to take the boards is not the way to use them. You should be using them as the best study material you have. And so you go through the question and answers. First time you go through them, you make sure you understand them. And second time you go through them, you'll be much quicker than the first time. Third time through, before the test probably, it'll be quicker yet. And it really is by far the best study technique. So I would recommend after you leave here, and if you're taking the boards in October this year, that you just do questions and answers. You can refer back to your syllabus if that's your primary source of information, if you haven't got the core, or if you've been studying the core, go back to your core. And if you're taking the test next year, boy, that's great, because you have plenty of time. So I would recommend the core. It's kind of like the source of everything else. All the lectures are derived from the core, syllabus is derived from the core. And if you really want to get deeper information on the topic, that's the place to go. Okay, and when you're going through question and answers, the first time through you study it. Every time you go through a question and answer after that, use your recall process as much as you possibly can. Read the question, try and figure out what they're getting at. Then look at the answers and try and recall what the best answer is, or figure out what the best answer is. Try and recall or figure out why the other answers are wrong and where they would be right. And then as you go through the explanation, you'll be attaching new information to that memory, those memories you dredged up and are going to reconsolidate. Flashcards are also great. They're good because you look at the front, it asks the questions. You can't look at the back until you've tried to figure out what the answer is. So they're great for recalling. So recalling's the secret. Question and answers is what you do after you leave here. That's it.